Welcome to the worst of the best podcast. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't freaking make it! So here's what you get. From Canada, Ryan and
Jason. Welcome to another episode of the Worst of the Best podcast. I'm your host, and with me today is my brother, Jason. How you doing, brother?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me on your show again.
Well, you know what's funny? We're in person. We're next to each other. We're moving up in the world because I think we figured out how to have both of our mics recording, like, to sound more professional. Because the last time we tried it, it didn't quite work sharing a mic. So I think we got two mics going here. So fingers crossed, it sounds a little bit better, but we appreciate everyone listening.
Yes, you have cracked the code, I believe, in how to use a microphone with a computer.
Just after 200 episodes or whatever, 150 episodes, and finally figuring things out. Okay. Well, usually we record, they say remotely. That means you're in your home, I'm in mine, and that's easy to edit, but or it's easy to have the person's mic come through. But when you're in person with each other, it's a little bit more finagling. Okay. Enough shop talk, as they say. Before we move into today's topic, Jason, our last couple of episodes, we've been plugging our email. You know, we've been like, hey, come on, guys, send us an email and give us some suggestions, give us some love. Well, we got one. After 100 plus episodes, we finally got an email. Granted, we've only been plugging the email for the last couple episodes. We got an email from our only listener in Australia. So this is really exciting. So if everyone from every country that listens to our show sent us an email, we get at least 10 emails. So if you're out there, if you're from the UK or if you're from Canada, the USA, you know, send us an email. Just say, hey, I love you guys. Keep it up. We'd love to hear from you. So, Jason, this is from Peter.
Okay.
He says this: thoroughly enjoying your Worst of the Best podcast, Ryan and Jason, especially as you are both my contemporaries. He was born in 1978 and can thoroughly and amusingly relate to all of your topics and perspectives. I especially enjoy your album podcast episodes. So he likes our album reviews or music episodes. Those and conspiracy ones seem to be kind of our...
It's the bread and butter.
Yeah, I mean, it pays the bills, right? Keeps the lights on. All that ad revenue that comes in. He says here, now, we did call out a challenge that if you give us a suggestion, we'll do it. If it's something that's in our wheelhouse, something we could actually speak to. So here's his suggestion. Jason, you let me know if this is something you want to do. He goes, I'd recommend you both break down Nirvana's seminal album, Nevermind, 1991 release. This album epitomizes, he says, my youth as I had just turned 13, entered high school, and the Australian economy was the worst it had been since 1945. The angst and melancholy that reverberates throughout this album highlights the existential loneliness and disdain I felt entering my first year of high school. So wow, he had a rough year there, it seems, and the recession was down, and this album spoke to him. He goes on to say, keep up the wonderful work, guys, especially as you reminisce with one another as brothers of years gone by. Love hearing the anecdotes and foibles of youth. Hey, we haven't shared any foibles, have we? We're perfect. Perfect youth.
We're good children.
Much admiration and respect from Down Under, Peter Schuler. So thank you, Peter, so much for your faithful listenership and for your wonderful email. And if you want to be a Peter, send us an email. And send us a suggestion, because we'll keep doing what we're doing. But, you know, if you have an idea that because I actually didn't think of this album. I admit, this is a big album, Nirvana's Nevermind. It probably would have been on my list for a long time. I don't know when we would have gone around to it, but it's definitely an album of such where you and I did listen to it. It was a big part of our youth, whether we liked it or not. But, okay, today, Jason, science. I like science. What I like about science is it doesn't have an agenda, or shouldn't. Shouldn't have an agenda.
Well, that was ironic.
Yeah, I know. What I mean by that is if you just, for example, 2 + 2 = 4, that just is what it is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Okay, so science and math are very correlated, as you know. Everything is numbers. So what I'm getting at here is science in and of itself shouldn't have an agenda. Now, people can use science for an agenda, but what things are or how they are and how we measure those things, i.e. through the scientific method, doesn't have an agenda. It just is rain wet, the air we breathe makes us live, all that stuff.
That is what should be great about science is that it is an unbiased view of existence, of the world around us or the universe around us.
Okay. Today's topic, well, people have already seen the topic because they've seen the title of the episode, 10 questions science still in 2022 can't answer. All right. So we've tried. Scientists have tried. People much smarter than me and you have used their math, used their backgrounds, used their training to say, how is this thing a thing? Or we know this thing or this idea exists because we can talk about it, but how come science still can't prove it? We're not going to necessarily talk about how or why it's not provable. We're just going to basically talk about what are the things science still can answer, and then we're going to talk about, what that means to us. And at the end of the episode, we're going to pick the one thing that science can't answer, the one thing that if we could have science answer 9 of these things, which is the one we could live without the answer? The worst thing.
The one that we care the least amount. Yeah.
I would still like to know all 10 answers as we go through them, but there might be one that's like, I could wait till the quote-unquote next life to find that answer. Okay. Is there a God? We're starting off right away with a big, big question, Jason. Is there a God? We know there's numerous religions out there, thousands, if not tens of thousands of ideas of God. Who is God? He, she, it, what? What does God look like and all this stuff? So is there a God? Science has not proven this idea or thought. Science estimates that 13.7 billion years ago, the Big Bang created the universe. This is an interesting concept in and of itself. I guess there is some math behind this that I'm not aware of, but this is the idea that, boop, here we go.
Here's an explosion.
Here we go.
That came from somewhere. Yeah, that's still beyond my ability to comprehend.
Jason, science has never revealed why the Big Bang happened and what preceded it. That's another mind-boggling idea. What came before the Big Bang? What was there?
So science, this is kind of a 1A and 1B because the science can't explain the Big Bang. Well, they can explain the Big Bang, but why it happened?
Right.
Yeah. Then they can't explain what happened before it happened.
Or what was around before it happened. You see a tree, and you can say, well, this tree now exists. What came before the tree? Well, the seed. There's some sort of idea the tree was seed once before, and how did that seed get there? Well, it traveled from another tree. There's just some sort of background with just plants and trees, but we don't have that with the Big Bang. Moreover, Jason, evolutionists are still perplexed about how the first living organisms grew from lifeless matter. Christians, or people that believe in God, or the creationists, I guess they call them, this is great evidence for their cause, in a sense. Because science can't explain the Big Bang, or where life came from, so to speak, this is their saying, well...
Right, we start coming to other conclusions as to how these things have come together.
I believe that's called the God Gap. I've heard that. Is it called the God Gap? Basically, what science can't prove, people just say,
yeah, it's not just even science. I mean, I think the God Gap would be almost any unexplainable situation or scenario in your life. I mean, it could be very personal. The chances that we met or whatever, like, how did this all come together?
Serendipitous situation.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would go to something even much bigger, like a Big Bang, or why we're here and why the Earth was created. We start filling in those gaps because as people, we tend to need conclusions. We don't like open-endedness very much. We need a resolution of questions. So we start creating these answers for ourselves. So if science can't answer it with high probability, then we start filling in those gaps, I suppose.
I'm sorry, we don't like not knowing.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the mathematician Roger Penrose in your travels through life, Jason? Well, mathematician Roger Penrose calculated that the probability of creating our universe filled with life would be a number closer to 0 than anyone has ever imagined. We understand the concept of 0. 0 means there's just no chance. So he's saying, we know that it happened. We're here. We exist. The mathematical probability that we should exist or life exists is closer to 0 than a number. We can't even imagine that number.
Which makes a lot of sense, considering we have not been able to fully identify life outside of our Earth.
Right.
Or at least intelligent life outside of our Earth. Becoming a little bit more open with the UFO phenomenon. Mm-hmm. In the last year, it's been quietly just like accepted almost. To say that there's intelligent life and that we're not seeing the type of life that we believe to be life outside of our Earth's experience.
The question therefore remains whether there is an omnipotent individual that, against all odds, had the power to create our cosmos.
Okay, so number 9 here that we're going to talk about is how are memories stored and retrieved. I find this interesting because this is something I thought would have already been fairly well understood.
I assumed we kind of knew this, but I guess we don't.
Yeah, so when a new fact is learned, physical changes in the brain occur across a network of synapses and neurons. Do you know what those are, Ryan?
Yeah, I do actually. Synapses and neurons. I remember a little bit from my time. I did a little bit of college, believe it or not, Jay. Back in the day, I did some college, and I did some bioscience or biopsychology. Sorry, that anyway. I can't
okay,
remember.
yeah.
So it's basically psychology and how the brain works, so like a neuroscience, early neuroscience,
yeah,
which I really enjoy. So basically, synaptics and neurons. So synaptics are like these. I'm going to butcher it, so people could just Google this. And emails that we're going to get a lot of corrections here. But my understanding is synapses is kind of think of like two points at the end of the cell or whatever that aren't connecting. And it's called the synaptic gap, for example. So there's a gap between the two. I think those are like those lightning things, those lightning machines.
Oh yeah.
Okay, think of that, right?
Yeah.
So you got the two rods, and the lightning is connecting the gaps.
Sure.
So the gap between that's called the synaptic gap. Okay, and so the neurons, those are just part of the atoms. What happens, for example, people that are depressed, there's a break in their synaptic gap where their neurons aren't firing. That's what they say. Everything's not firing on all cylinders.
Sure.
So what's happened is the part of the brain that takes care of dealing with sadness in a quote-unquote normally developed brain, it just deals with the sadness, so to speak. But people who have depression, clinical depression, they don't have their synaptic gaps firing and they're not connecting. And what the medication does, it just bridges that gap.
Okay.
So anyway, so synapses work in that way. Obviously, that's just I just used the depression part as an example, but this is for all the way the brain works. There's things firing between the synapses.
Right. So we have these synapses and the neurons and the way that they connect. But neurologists do not fully understand what these changes are and how they hold knowledge.
Well, think of it like looking at a car engine. You can see how the car engine is combusting. You can see that it's firing on all cylinders. You can see that maybe they're saying they don't know how the engine started or what's moving it, what's inside these things almost. Why is this working? So what are some of the theories that exist?
So they have some ideas about how the memories might be stored, but the concept that has left the neurologists most baffled is the ability to retrieve memories.
We get it that there's information stored in the brain, but they're not even sure quite how they were getting that information back out.
Well, and especially after the memories are able to be retrieved so quickly. So let's say we're having a conversation and then I can all of a sudden recall an experience from 40 years ago and be able to talk about it. And how is it that we're able to pull these memories or even facts, like you talked about your science class, your biology science class in college.
That just came.
It just came, right? Like how did your brain know to go to that space?
That's right.
To retrieve
where to go?
It hasn't been accessed in 25 years, and all of a sudden you decided to access it.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I would assume, of course, that people that study Alzheimer's and what have you, this is probably what they're trying to figure out. How do we bridge this gap? How do we get these patients who suffer from Alzheimer's to retrieve who they are and all that? Yeah.
We have memories and the ability to recall these memories, but science hasn't been able to truly crack that code yet as to how that all works.
That's very interesting. That was a surprise to me that we don't know that information. Okay?
Yeah.
Why do we dream? This, again, is a question that science has not been able to answer. We know that we dream. We can talk about our dreams. We can share our dreams. We can even have fun dreams, bad dreams, sad dreams, nightmares, but we don't know why. Again, we know why we drink water, right? Our body needs water to survive. We know why we have to have air. Air is oxygen for the brain to function. So we know a lot of whys about how the body works. So dreaming does take place in our body. It takes place in our brain, another brain one. But we don't know the evolutionary reason or the scientific reason. Why is this necessary?
So it's interesting that we just talked about memories and being able to recall memories. And then we go into now dreams, and they seem like they would be somewhat interconnected.
And they might be.
This one fascinates me. What a mystery as to why it is that we participate in dreaming. I suspect we might all dream every night.
I think it is that you dream every night, but speaking of memory, you're not able to recall the dreams necessarily every night.
I actively dream every night. I may not be able to recall the dream like today, like right now, this moment. What did I dream last night?
Right.
But I know as I sleep, kind of go in and out of sleep, that I am dreaming. It's like I live two lives, honestly. It's like I live two lives.
I have my own theories about dreams. I think everyone does dream, obviously. I think some people, I've heard things like people dream in black and white, people dream lucid dreaming, I believe that's what it's called. They feel like they're controlling their dreams.
I can do that.
Want to hear my theories on dreams?
Let's do that. Yeah.
So really quick, my own personal theories is I've done a lot of very hobby-like studying of past life regression. It's a fascinating concept. Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. Maybe it's an episode we could do. Past life regression is done through hypnosis, and that's a fascinating topic in of itself as well. But we understand hypnosis is, if you're to believe what it is the person will control, will tell the patient or the whoever, let's go back in time. Let's talk about your time as a 5-year-old and the time as when you're born, and then they go back to past life. Have you ever gone to these past life discussions or?
Yes, I mean I've listened to. I mean I don't really read books, but I listen to a lot of books.
Audiobooks. Right?
Yeah, Audible. I have listened to some people talk about past life experiences.
Person, they record this. So this individual who's like Peter Jones comes in and just expounds on this information, and then they will quote unquote wake up and they're like, okay, well, that was a waste of time. They're like, no, I've got the recording here of everything you've just said. They'll listen to it. The guy is, if it's a con job, I don't understand it, because here's the con job. The con job would be, because it costs money, by the way. Past life hypnotists, they actually go on a course. They actually have to get training. And if you go to them, you pay money, a lot of money. It's like $300 or something. Like, it's a lot of money. It wouldn't make sense for me to go. I'm sure maybe some people do, because, there's people that go to the doctor when they're not sick. I get it. But the idea is I give you hundreds of dollars for one visit, and I'm going to tell you a fake story just so I can, like, it would.
Well, even,
yeah,
but there's even other people with past life stories where they have historical pieces of information.
Right. Yeah, who haven't gone to these people, sorry.
Yeah.
They just shared them. They still remember them. Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah, there's people that remember past lives, and there's people that don't remember them, but they come out when they go under hypnosis.
Right.
That's right. I shouldn't say it's only through hypnosis. So there's people that, it's a fascinating topic. It definitely intrigues me. It kind of makes me hopeful of life in general, that this isn't it.
I feel the very same way, Ryan. I do. It provides, hope for.
There isn't nothingness. There might be something that we are growing and we are learning. We are all those things, that there's no heaven or hell per se, but there is progression is the right word, but the idea that we can experience things. This is I knew this would get us off a little bit, but here's my theory. So talk about past lives. Dreams. Have you ever had a dream, Jason, where it was a short dream, of course the dream isn't very long because you're only sleeping for X number of hours in a night. But in the dream, you had relationships in history, and like you're in the storyline, so to speak, almost like in the middle of a movie. But everything makes sense. Nothing was explained to you. Whatever the scenario is, the people you're talking to, the scenario that you are in, it all makes sense in the dream. Like, you're not confused by the fact that you're in this situation, and you have these relationships. And sometimes it could be love. I've had love in dreams, love lost, fights, angry things of people I don't know. I've had death. I've died, so to speak, in dreams. Face my death. It's a very disconcerting feeling to die in a dream. And I thought to myself, what if that is past lives? That's my hypnosis. That's me reaching the back of my brain while you're sleeping, because all your hypnosis is literally putting you under an awake sleep, digging into your brain. So you could argue, well, dreams are just crazy stories, and so hypnosis just tackles dreams, or your dreams are your past lives and experience, maybe mingled a little bit with your current life situation, because that's in your memory banks right now.
Yeah, I can fully understand what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get it. I would tend to agree with a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah. I feel like there's times when I'm dreaming, I know that person, or I'm in love with a person. Relationships, and sometimes I'm male and sometimes I'm female. Like, I've had that too, where I'm old, I'm young, or the sex is irrelevant almost. Like, it's weird. Anyways, it's an interesting.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So early civilization, Jason, believed that dreams were a gateway between the earth and the gods. So maybe kind of what we're talking about. That was early civilizations, of course. Those uneducated early civilizations. which I think knew a lot more than we think. However, this was later scientifically rejected, along with Freud's theory that dreams express our subconscious desires. And that, to me, that's too simplistic. The Freudian desires. There's so much more in my dreams than just desiring sex and food. Like, come on.
The subconscious desires will creep in.
Of course.
Because you're kind of uninhibited in a sleep state, right? So anything that you kind of... Okay, for an example, people feel like, and I can do this as well from time to time, depends on how deep of a sleep I am or what I'm thinking about prior to going to sleep. You kind of manipulate the dream state. I don't think Freud's completely wrong.
No, but just about the idea is just
But if that's the
desires.
only... They're just throwing
That's
that
easy.
in.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Every dream just can't be about
No, yeah, for sure.
money, sex, and food. But it is widely agreed upon by those who study this that dreams are crucial to help process emotions, like you're talking about. Sleep research has revealed the existence of rapid eye movement, dreams, and the point at which we are most likely to remember dreams. So they've been able to narrow down at least. They figure rapid eye movement, that deepest part of your sleep, is the majority of our dreaming kind of takes place. Again, I argue that's when you go into that subconscious Freud might be talking about. Yes, when you go deep into your who is the real Ryan, who's the real Jason part of your brain. This is where we might most likely remember a dream, is those deep parts of our dreaming. However, a scientific explanation as to why we see strange images when we sleep remains in question. So there we go. Why is it we see what we see? I'm going to stick with my theory. It's past life. It's past life images, but they don't know why it's happening. We do know it's happening. We kind of know when it happens. We've got the how we dream, when it happens, but we still just don't know why that reason to dream.
Interesting that we have a difficult time understanding how memory is completely created, how we have a difficult time understanding how memories are recalled, and the dreaming is connected with all that. If you want to believe in the past life experience as a part of that, our memories of those past lives are going to be more difficult to understand as to why we bring those into our sleep. But why is it always happening in our sleep, though? Why can't it happen? I guess that's hypnosis, though, right? Kind of awakened.
That's the hypnosis. The hypnosis puts you in a sleeping state. You can almost argue hypnosis allows the dream to be recorded in real time. Imagine if you were able to physically record your dreams.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what's happening. So maybe hypnosis, it's either two things. Dreams are just a holodeck going crazy in your brain. It's just your own brain is just running rampant on its own, creating images and relationships that you couldn't come up with in a sleeping and an awake state, but you seem to be able to do a sleeping state, or you are tapping into the memory of past lives in your DNA.
Like, and then people can add in psychedelic drugs, etc., ayahuasca.
Brain's fascinating, man.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
Okay, now going along with sleep, why do we yawn? Interesting that science hasn't been able to resolve this question as to why we yawn. And it always seems to be associated with sleep or being tired. On average, a person will yawn around 250,000 times in their lifetime.
That's a lot of yawning.
Yeah.
250,000 times. What's the quick math on that? So, say you live 80 years. And that's generous, but it's, I think, 80. 80 times 365 is a day, daily. Okay, so it's 29,200. 29,200, so 250,000 divided by 29,200 days. You yawn about 8 to 9 times a day.
Do you think you yawn that much? I don't know if I do.
I don't think I've yawned once today. As the time of this recording, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and I don't think I've yawned. Now I'm thinking about it.
Despite the fact that most humans, on average, will yawn about 250,000 times in their life, they still don't know why we yawn. Now, a recent study suggests that yawning chills the brain to allow a boost in intellectual performance.
Okay, interesting.
I was under the impression that we yawn to access more oxygen. Have you heard of that idea?
Yeah, I've heard about the oxygen one, which is always kind of funny to me.
I need to chill my brain to have more intellectual power. Okay, well, we need a little bit more oxygen to the brain, so let's do a little bit of a deep breath. But is yawning really bringing
That's what I was
in?
going to say. To me, that's a silly... I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not a biologist. But the idea... Like, think about jogging. I just went for a jog this morning, and my breathing increases as I jog.
Yeah, you're not...
Like, I don't need to go...
you see these marathon runners
all yawning
through the whole race.
So that's a silly theory. Does it? Like, it's this big gulp of air. Like, okay, Doesn't make sense. So I don't like that one.
The other thing is, and I'm not sure if you feel this, and I don't know if it's, do you find that yawning is contagious? If you see somebody yawn or if you talk about yawning?
I've done it. So to say it's not, I would be lying. To say that I haven't seen someone yawn and then I haven't done it afterwards isn't true. It's happened, and I've seen it happen, yes. Even talking about it. There's been a couple times now talking about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of resisting right now, to be honest.
Who's yawned since listening?
No one has because they're not listening.
People that do listen to our podcast probably yawn quite frequently.
They're yawning for like 40 minutes while they listen.
They get their 250,000 yawns per episode.
Talking about the contagiousness of yawning, this might go along with evolutionary theories that the claim that yawning stems from our evolution from apes, when the action was used as a communication signal. However, there's no evidence to support this theory either.
I don't necessarily disagree with it in the sense of, again, I have yawned because I've seen someone else yawn. I think everyone has. I think we either witnessed it or we've participated in a mutual yawning back and forth.
like this massive feedback loop. I can't stop yawning.
So I think
stop yawning.
If you retcon the yawn, there you go. I bet that's never been said before. Retcon the yawn. So if you retcon it and say, hey, we came from apes, and if I'm yawning and we see apes in the wild today, roar, back at each other, that's how we're retconning the yawn. It's like we see apes do it today, so we must have done it, 2 million years ago. Sure. But we just don't know. At the end of the day, scientists cannot prove with their scientific method why we yawn. What is the purpose of it? We don't know. We know it can happen when you're tired. It can also happen when you're not tired. It can happen when you see someone else do it, so we don't know. We still don't know. Scientifically, we can't prove without a shadow of a doubt why we yawn.
And it's kind of funny, isn't it?
It is kind of funny that because that's we know why we sneeze. That's an easy one. The things in your follicles in your nose get tickled, that it's a reaction. Yeah, I'll hit you. We know a lot of stuff. Why do we bleed? Why do we cry? All those things are measured, but we don't know why we yawn. Jason, this is a big question, but still, science doesn't know the answer. What is the universe made of? Atoms, which form everything we see around us, account for 5% of the universe. I thought it was more than that. But astronomers can't explain what the other 95% of the universe is made of. That's scary.
Yeah. If we don't fully understand the Big Bang, if we don't fully understand a lot of the other things that we've talked about,
how can we understand who we are? So for the last 80 years, Jason, astronomers have determined the majority of the universe is made up of two entities, dark matter and dark energy. Now, we're not going to go deep into those topics. Those are things I do not understand, but these are things that scientists have agreed on that they exist, that dark matter and dark energy exist. I guess dark matter and dark energy don't have atoms. They're saying that the measurable universe is 5% atoms and 95% dark energy and dark matter.
Yeah, I can't answer your question. There's just no way for me to expound on that.
So dark matter, though, Jason, is believed to bind galaxies together, while dark energy is believed to be pushing the universe's expansion. So check this out. So dark matter binds galaxies.
It's a yin and yang.
Yes, right. And dark energy is pushing that same universe out. It's so weird to me. We all agree that the universe is expanding. That's a weird concept. So the universe is expanding. It had a quote-unquote beginning with the Big Bang as we understand it. What's beyond the universe? What is the universe pushing? Like, it's expanding. So what is behind that which has not been? For example, think of a glass of an empty glass, right? That glass is empty. I pour water into it. That's expanding the universe. What did the water replace? We know it replaced air, but air is a thing. So what is beyond the universe? So what is it pushing on? Like, what is it replacing?
What is it filling up?
Does nothing exist? Is nothing a something? Like, can nothing be something?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's as it expands, what is it expanding into?
What's it replacing?
Yeah, it's going into something.
Yeah, like when I go into, I have a nice little hot tub out in the backyard there, and it's not a big one, but it's a nice little 4-person hot tub.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Yeah. When I go into the hot tub, I'm pushing water out. Like, so I've replaced. So what is the universe pushing on?
That's a really good question. Like, seriously,
it can't be nothing. Nothing can't be something. Like, I don't know. People come to the show for the big question.
No answers. Just more questions.
Well, this is the whole purpose of this episode. We actually have no answers. But as dark matter and dark energy are invisible to light and electromagnetic radiation, it is impossible to detect or understand what they actually are. So we know that dark matter exists. We know that dark energy exists. We have no way of measuring them or analyzing them, so we don't know what it actually is. That is so freaking freaky to me. That we can know that something exists and it comprises 95% of everything, and we don't know how to analyze it. We don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's just theories, obviously, at this point. What tests are possible to be able to provide that answer? And obviously they don't have any because they would have had those answers. There's a few things in here that would seem to be unanswerable.
Speaking of maybe the next one, does Shakespeare call this the undiscovered country?
So yeah, it's like what happens after we pass away? Science hasn't been able to properly answer that question either. They do know that there's 2 stages of our demise. The first one is like the clinical death, when our heart stops beating and there's a biological death. And all our organs, they shut down. However, what happens after death remains elusive to researchers. Some people believe who have had near-death experiences claim to have felt out-of-body sensations and seen deceased loved ones. I know this is a topic of interest with you, Ryan. It is a mine.
I was about to say, I know you've done a lot of hobbyist-like research with near-death.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on the near-death experience? What is your feeling on that?
Well, kind of going along with the dreams, it provides me with a little bit of hope of a continuation and really an improvement of existence, that we're building on something that we have started. I'm hoping previous to this, our life's experience now, and that there's a brighter future as we move forward into the next life, or when we die, or however we want to word that experience.
Yeah, I knew this was a topic that you were interested in, near-death experiences. I've done a lot of reading of books on them. Again, this is a situation where you can argue they've done some things of people have studied these things where they're like, oh, you're just bringing your past or your own knowledge into the afterlife, and that's why you dreamed what you dreamed or saw what you saw, even though you came back. But this is fascinating and correlating people who've never spoken to each other have very similar accounts of things. And so I don't know if everything's to be believed, but again, there's enough chatter about it and throughout thousands of years. This isn't like a new phenomenon. This is something people talk about.
If anybody who's studied near-death experiences or will hear these stories of people being able to recall conversations when they were clinically dead from within the doctor, the operating room, or being able to identify landmarks or specific parts of a building as they float up into the next life, and they're able to look down and be able to go, I saw this and this and this. And they're like, well, it'd be impossible for you to be able to see what you're describing because you were dead. Yet they can recall this information.
Yeah, that's weird. Such and such patient was in the hospital, pronounced dead, and they're like walking around the hallways of the hospital, and they're actually hearing the conversations outside of their body with the doctors talking about them. And then they go back into their body and they tell the doctors, "You guys were saying X, Y, Z," and they're like, "No, but you were dead." But no, but I was there. So which one is it?
So, what's interesting is you're saying that a lot of these neurological brains, how they're all kind of connected, our ability to recall memory, our dream state, and now near-death experiences, they all seem to be somewhat interconnected. The brain and what it's capable of either creating or recalling. I'm not sure, or maybe it's a combination of both. Are we creating this experience within ourselves? Mm-hmm. Or are we recalling these experiences?
We don't know. There's just no way.
The fact that each individual topic is unknown to scientists, I mean, these are questions that are open-ended and aren't resolvable, at least within our podcast.
No. I don't know what number we're on. Is it 5, 6? I don't know.
Speaking of recalling, I don't recall where we are.
All right. Well, it doesn't matter. Next one. Could we wake up 200 years in the future? The idea of chronic preservation has been a running theme in science fiction for decades. It just means you're freezing your brain, your ideas, your body, all those things, so it can be reanimated at a later time, i.e. the great action film Demolition Man. Cryogenically frozen.
Probably that whole script probably should have stayed frozen.
How dare you? So it involves preserving a person's body at very low temperatures with the hope that future medical technology will restore it one day. If they had this ability, to cryogenically freeze your body right now to be reanimated, so the moment you close your eyes, open them again, you're going to be 200 years in the future. No matter what that future is, would you do it?
With basically, air quotes, dying now.
Dying now to wake up 200 years later.
No.
In this terrible alternate universe, everyone I love is gone, dead, or they never existed. So I'm just a solo. Yeah, I would do it, but I can't do this to my wife and kids. No, so that's the problem.
And why would you do that?
Okay, well, the reason why I would do it is just because I got to know. I got to know what the world is like 200 years from now.
Okay, and the reason why I wouldn't, and it goes back to my feelings about dreaming, near-death experiences, what happens when we pass away. I guess the preservation of life here as I know it isn't as important to me as the idea of an improved state and a progressive state, a higher state of existence where life can be, maybe it's better than what we think it is and better than what we've experienced. And there's kind of that hope that what we see and experience here on Earth in our day-to-day existence, that there is actually something bigger and better. And so to try and preserve life as I know it isn't as important as the hope of a better, brighter future that's more expansive and has a deeper understanding as to why we exist. Like the meaning of life.
Sure.
And so by holding on or grasping on to this concept of I want to live forever, as I know it right now, isn't as appealing as what I hope it will be. And 200 years from now, Earth even be around. So
the whole world will be China.
The reality, though, is whether you cryogenically freeze in 200 years from now, you wake up, at some point, I'm guessing you will die. So
either way, you're going to die.
At some point, you'll die.
Could argue maybe some of these questions will be answered in 200 years, so you have these answers.
Yeah, or I just die and I'll have those answers.
So cryobiologist Dr. Gao says that, quote, we know we can successfully preserve very small things like insects and simple tissues like blood vessels, but freezing the human body is far more challenging. I'm not even a scientist. I could have told you that. Come on.
Yeah, but we can put people to sleep in operations. But, and I don't know, like cryogenically freezing, like all those tissues and membrane, like if all those things preserved?
Right. Yeah, well, even if you wanted to preserve just the brain, it would require dozens of different cryopreserving procedures. Just don't have available.
That sounds like we're not really quite there yet.
So science can't quite answer how long it will take for the human cryopreservation to be successful, if even possible at all. They're able to do insects and blood vessels and stuff, so the technology is there. We know that we can reanimate something that has been cryogenically frozen. So we have the technology. But so the question here is, will we ever have the technology to do it for humans?
How would you test that theory? People would have to go, I'm willing to for a year?
A year, probably.
And then you go, okay, who's going to go 5 years?
Yeah.
20 years?
So that's a
long term. Yeah. This is a long term.
It's a walk in the park for the person being frozen in the sense that it's not boring for them to wait.
Right. It'd be like kind of
a 10-year dream.
A blink of an eye. Well, that would be weird, though.
Do they dream?
Do they dream when they're cryogenically
we know they're not yawning when they're frozen, but if their brain's still, I would assume their brain active, is it still active? Anyways, those are questions for another day. All right, what do you got there?
Okay, so what is at the bottom of a black hole? And science has not been able to answer this question.
Black holes are crazy fascinating. Scary.
The most menacing thing in the universe.
It literally just sucks in everything around it. Its gravitational pull is so strong that it sucks in light.
From what we understand, it's now permanently trapped within the black hole.
It's weird. What is going on here?
It's a fascinating topic, and I'm not sure I will ever understand what's inside a black hole.
I do know this stuff goes in.
Things get sucked in, but we are unable to understand what lies at the bottom of them. So it's like having an endless well, or things can fall into it.
Yeah.
Where is it going? What's holding?
Those things exist.
Or they existed.
Yeah.
Like
I assume black holes get sucking planets and stars.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So it's like a carburetor of space. Yeah, where is this stuff going when it sucks it all in?
I just had an idea. So the idea of autophagy within your body, like you kind of recycle your own dead cells or your own, it's kind of a self-healing process within your body.
Mm-hmm.
maybe black holes is kind of like the process of it cleans up the universe in a way. Or,
it's not a
or
bad
space,
idea, but I don't think there's enough of them. Is there enough of them doing that, though?
Well, how many black holes do we need? I mean,
What, do we need any? How many? I don't know. Why do we have any?
Well, Einstein theorizes that black holes continue to cave in until they become infinitely small, and some physicists believe that they act as a porthole to other universes.
I love that. I mean, it's fascinating.
Okay, going along with my autophagy idea,
Right.
maybe it's not a porthole to another universe, but it's a recycling,
Okay.
creating other universes.
Okay, sure. Yeah, and that's the alternate universes. That's our multiverse.
We currently don't have the tools or technology advanced enough to prove any of these theories or ideas, so the truth remain a mystery for now.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Black holes are just space. Is space, you crazy. I love this question, Jason, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do ghosts exist? Science hasn't been able to prove this, and that's an interesting question because there are more ghost stories than near-death experience stories than past life regression stories. If you want to talk about tribal knowledge or tribal experiences, if you want to measure something, you could at least measure the accounts, the stories, people who are just normal, quote unquote, not insane people saying, I saw something and what happened? What did I hear? And we're talking, some of the stuff's been caught on camera for Pete's sakes. The closest we've gotten to studying this is quote unquote ghost hunters. Scientists have used electromagnetic field detectors and thermal imaging to try and find some sort of scientific evidence of their existence, but to no avail. But let me play ball for the people that believe in ghosts or have seen ghosts. Let me play a little bit of ball here for them. You know how we're saying we don't have the right equipment to measure dark matter and dark energy?
Yeah.
But we know it exists. We know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So why can't we have that same reasoning regarding ghosts?
Sure.
We just don't have the proper equipment to quote-unquote capture ghosts, like the movie Ghostbusters. We don't have the ability to measure them, per se, or to capture one, or to interview one, or say, my goodness, I know I've seen things I can't explain. I think you have seen things you can't explain. I've heard noises. My house I used to live in, Royal Roads there, it was haunted. It was legit. I heard my name being called in my room once. It was very disconcerting. I was lying down with my wife at the time, going to sleep, normal going to sleep, and I heard at the foot of my bed, Ryan.
You're scaring me, Ryan. And we're in broad daylight.
As clear as day, and I was like, my wife at the time, her name, it wasn't her, because she was right next to my ear. It was at the foot of the bed. Ryan. Ever since then, it was so clear and so disconcerting, I have gone to sleep with a white noise machine to drown out any more whisperings. There was other instances in that house. The boys, they were terrified of their bedroom. They said there's something in the closet. They were just horrified to be in their room. It was a weirdly scary house. I felt bad they were in that room because they were terrified of it. Another thing was in that house, I was downstairs in the basement, semi-finished basement, playing video games, and I was off work. The wife was at work, kids were at school. And I remember hearing this. And it was the running of footsteps up the stairs, 2 floors up. And I'm like, why are the boys home from school? They're supposed to be at school. So I went upstairs. Guys, what? Hello? I'm like, what? And so I went downstairs and played again. And I ran up the stairs as fast as I could. Who are you? Where are you? What are you doing here? No answer. And then it happened more than once. And it got to the point, I kid you not, that I just started ignoring it throughout the days. That house was a 50-plus-year-old house. It's actually on, if you want to Google it, in fact, Google it so people know I'm not lying. It's military housing on a place in Victoria called the Royal Roads University. There's a Hatley Castle is a part of that property, and that has had many haunting stories at that property. Yeah. I got a feeling that property in general in that area is haunted. Google Hatley Castle hauntings, and you'll see that I'm not totally crazy, that people have written accounts that they're haunted.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. I've seen and heard stuff. I don't know.
I've had not as defined as your experiences, but I've had moments, like sleep paralysis where you're kind of stuck between being awake and asleep. I've had, can be scary, but as I've gotten older, I've embraced those experiences and actually go with it. I don't feel as afraid from those sleep paralysis experiences. Now, that's not completely a ghost story, but in those experiences, often we feel the presence of something looming. I've had a couple experiences when I was like quite young, so I don't know if I can attribute it to just an overheightened imagination, maybe brain development, whatnot. There's a couple experiences that are very vivid, but again, it was when I was younger. There was one home that seemed a little bit unsettling, but the ghost thing is I'm not as sold on it as you are. I'm more sold on a near-death experience, on the fascination with dreaming, etc. I'm not 100% sold on ghosts per se. I'm not to say no one's experienced these things or they're not real.
There's so many experiences. That's what's...
Yeah.
Like, is everyone lying? Is everyone...
No, it's the people... There's billions of people that have lived.
Yeah.
Many of these experiences are going to be replicated.
If you want to, I almost believe in the multiverse more than I do in ghosts. So I think there's some overlay.
Yeah,
like,
there's a dimension.
Film, you get old film, and if you're processing film in some sort of whatever processing department, the film can overlap. So it looks like there's a figure in the film.
Sure. Yeah.
So I wonder if life is like that, where we overlap other existences.
Yeah, multi-dimensional. Yeah. There could be like multiple living existences.
And we bump into each other. Oh, hey! Oh, what the hell?
Yeah, and there could be like a little glitch or a little bit of a gap in...
Oh yeah, check out our episode of the simulation theory. I think we did that, didn't we? We talked about the simulation theory. All right, so the glitch in the matrix was one of those ideas. So what scientists have said, though, Jay, about ghosts is they believe these sightings are just caused purely by mental phenomena. Electrical fields and ocular vibrations. So basically, our mind's playing tricks on us. That's what they're saying everyone's experiencing. But I could argue, come on, scientists. Like, I feel it's a bit of a cop-out because they don't know. So it's like the backwards God gap. Oh, it's just your brain playing tricks on you. My question, again, playing for the ghost team, is, well, what about people experiencing the same thing at the same time? You hear about that. People are in the same haunted house or room, and they hear or see the same things. People have gotten scratched and stuff. It's weird, man.
Yeah.
But people are in the same room. Well, how is there similar experiences being happening? Anyway, I don't...
The fact that we're even talking about a ghost...
It shouldn't exist if it doesn't exist.
Exactly. Why is it, there's this phenomenon, and it's not new. It's been discussed and talked about, and
recorded history.
Yes. That has got to be...
There's something going on.
Yeah.
I think you've got the last one, Jay.
Yeah. How does the placebo effect work?
I thought they would have an answer to this.
I thought so too, honestly. The phenomenon where a fake treatment can improve a patient's health simply because they believe it has stumped doctors for decades.
So again, we know this is happening, but they don't know how.
It's interesting how many of these ideas that we're talked about comes back to not fully understanding the brain.
The brain.
So experiments have since been carried out to understand the power the mind has to improve health and how some patients are more susceptible to the placebo effect than others. Hypnosis is probably another example when, some people are more susceptible or more easily hypnotized than others. Same with the placebo effect. But however, there's no viable explanation has ever been found as to why this happens. Have you had any experiences with the placebo?
I bet you we all have. I bet you we all have, to a degree, without knowing it. How do you vouch for that? But I feel like take this and you'll feel better. Okay, let's say you've taken medicine for a headache. I wonder how many times we've taken medicine for a headache and we felt better before the scientific medicine actually took over its job.
Right.
Because we took the pill. We knew that pain relief was coming. It does come, and eventually the medicine does do its job, but I wonder how many times the effects, as we would say, of that pain medicine kicked in before it kicked in because we knew it was coming.
So to go along with that, as you were saying that, it was making me think power, and more recently people talk about the power of meditation, going through the need to meditate to help lower stress and etc. That to me is maybe an indication of a placebo effect.
Yeah, meditation has been, I would say, scientifically proven, but it's pretty much universally, yes. Meditate to clear your mind, helps everything, helps your body.
Yeah, your nervous system, etc., etc. And I would suspect the placebo effect is a very similar approach.
I would assume it's probably the exact same thing is happening, but again, how does, quote unquote, having a clear mind or not being... Well, we know if you're constantly under stress, your body breaks down. So there's still that. So there is something happening to your body, a physiological response to how your brain is functioning.
Right. Placebo effect is
connected to all that.
Is all connected, whether it's thinking you're taking actual medication or you're trying to improve your state of health, your state of your mind, etc., etc. I mean, the power of thought, trying to speak something into existence, the idea that like
the secret.
The secret, right? Or you have your board up and you got like, your Ferraris and your mansions and your, beach house retreat. All these ideas to help promote a healthier outcome. Why that works, science doesn't know.
Yeah, that's it. That is our 10 things or 10 questions science still can't answer. Let's go over it real quickly. Just as a refresher, here are the 10 questions science still can answer. Is there a God? How are memories stored and retrieved? Why do we dream? Why do we yawn? What is the universe made of? What happens after we pass away? Could we be cryogenically frozen one day? What's at the bottom of a black hole? Do ghosts exist? How does the placebo effect work? There you go. Those are our 10 questions science still can answer. Jason, which one is the one question? So 9 of them you're going to get answers. Whether you like it or not, you're going to get answers. But which one could you live without knowing?
I wish it was more difficult to answer this. And if it was a list of 9, not including the one that, if there was one without the one I'm going to give as my answer, it would have been way more difficult.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have the same one. Go ahead.
Yawning.
Oh, okay.
Why do we yawn?
Yeah.
Of all in that list, yawning has, I'm going to yawn over yawning. It's not that interesting. I think it made the
list because it's one of those things that, in of itself, it's a pretty unfascinating thing. Yawning, we all do it. We all seen it. It's not a mystery as to like yawning existing. But I think it's just because it's so...
Maybe it's so common.
That we don't know why.
That we don't truly understand why.
It's a frustrating thing. I can see it as an irritant to scientists. Like, how come we can't figure this out? I think that's what it is. I think it is such a small thing. It seems like every other bodily function... We get why these things are and where they're stored and how come. We don't know why is it we have to go.
So silly.
Because someone did it and there was a scientist that said, hey, why'd you do that? I don't know. I guess I'm just tired. But I've yawned when I'm not tired or bored. We could even say, hey, you're tired, so you yawned, but what did it do? What did the yawning do because you're tired? It's still a when. We know how it's done, but we don't know why the body requires it.
If this wasn't on the list, I'm going to probably say ghosts. If I had a second one. If I was allowed to have a second pick,
interesting.
One that comes to my mind is probably ghosts.
Okay, so my first one is yawning too. When I saw this list and we went through it and talked about it, I would say again, if I could live without the answer, I could live. I could go the rest of my life never knowing why we yawned. It still would be kind of interesting to really truly get to know the answer as to what it does for our body.
I mean, I don't know if there's an evolutionary answer to the question or a physical
Like, what's the truth? What's the actual truth? Your body says, I am doing this because
I need a physical improvement.
Of some sort.
Yeah.
But we haven't been able to prove that reason yet. I find that fascinating. I find yawning, the subject of yawning, boring, but ironically, I find it fascinating we don't know why we yawn. So
I did not know that we did not know. Like, that's actually just as fascinating as yawning.
But I could live without. I could live without the answer. But if I had to have a second pick, if there was 9 things and yawning wasn't on there, for me, it'd be the cryogenically frozen.
Oh, I've forgotten about that one.
It'd be cool to one day be able to do it. So the answer to the question, will we ever have the ability? But with the ability, that's a fascinating answer. Would you do it? So who knows? I think it was a fascinating discussion all around.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. If you want to send us an email to give us a topic or just to tell us that you love us, it doesn't have to be that. It could be either or both. worstofthebestpodcast@gmail.com. Be a Peter. Let us know.
I guess the goal, Ryan, really is to have listeners that don't yawn as much while they listen to our...
If you've yawned, send us an email. We might get some more. Okay. Well, remember, in front of every silver lining, there's a cloud. And today, it was yawning. Or, more specifically, why do we yawn?
Gamma Gator Productions.